The galaxy had long forgotten Earth. Centuries had passed since the humans, once a powerful and unpredictable species, vanished from the stars. In their place, the Dominion rose, a mighty intergalactic empire that swept across the cosmos like a tide, quelling rebellion and extinguishing civilizations that dared to resist. They built an empire that spanned thousands of worlds, yet Earth, that once thriving cradle of humanity, had faded into myth. The ruins of a once great planet now lay abandoned, buried beneath the weight of time and apathy. Even the Dominion archives had no record of Earth's true history, only fragments of long-forgotten whispers. To them, it was nothing more than a primitive world, easily ignored and easily erased. The planet had been rendered insignificant, left behind as the Dominion's empire grew ever more vast. In their eyes, it was a place of little consequence, but that would soon change. On a distant world at the edge of Dominion space, an elite team of explorers boarded a research vessel bound for Earth's orbit. Their mission was simple: investigate a series of unexplained energy readings that had been detected by the Dominion's deep space sensors. At first, the Dominion had dismissed the signals as nothing more than cosmic noise, but the persistence of the readings could not be ignored. Something had changed on Earth. Captain Valora Terex, a seasoned officer in the Dominion's Scientific Exploration Division, led the team. Her reputation as a no-nonsense leader was well-earned, her sharp mind and precision making her one of the most respected figures in the Dominion fleet. She glanced at the holographic display as the ship neared Earth's atmosphere, the blue and green planet a stark contrast to the cold, sterile void surrounding them. "What do we know about these readings?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with curiosity. Lieutenant Cal Norin, the ship's chief sensor technician, replied with a furrowed brow. "They're consistent, Captain, but not like anything we've seen before. There's a pattern, like someone's trying to communicate with us. But the frequency, it doesn't match anything in the Dominion database. It's too old, yet it's too deliberate to be random." Valora's lips tightened. So, it's either a trap, or someone on Earth is still alive. "Possibly both," Cale said, tapping a few commands into his console. "We should be prepared for anything." As the ship descended toward Earth, the crew could feel the weight of their mission bearing down on them. They were entering a world that had been abandoned for ages, a place that might have forgotten its own people. But they knew that something had survived. The Dominion had erased most traces of humanity's existence, but Earth itself remained, a silent witness to the past. The planet's surface came into view, its once vibrant cities now reduced to crumbling skeletons of stone and steel. Vast deserts stretched across what was once fertile land, and forests had long since withered and turned to ash. Yet despite the desolation, there was something unsettling about the planet, a sense that it was not entirely empty. As the ship hovered above a forgotten city, a jolt of energy coursed through the vessel, and the instruments went haywire. The crew scrambled to regain control as the hull of the ship vibrated from an unexpected force. "Captain, something's destabilizing the systems," shouted Ensign Rye, the ship's navigator. "Pull up," Valora ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "We're too close to the surface." The ship wrenched itself back into the sky, narrowly avoiding a catastrophic crash. Cal checked the readings and cursed under his breath. Whatever it was, it's still there. It's coming from underground. Something is waiting. Valora took a deep breath, her eyes narrowing. "Prepare for a ground expedition. We're not leaving until we know what's going on down there." As the crew prepared to land, Valora couldn't shake the feeling that Earth's silence was not an accident. There were still secrets buried beneath its surface, and those secrets would be the key to understanding what had happened to humanity, and why they had been forgotten by the galaxy. The shuttle touched down in the ruins of an ancient city, its walls cracked and crumbled by centuries of neglect. The explorers stepped into the eerie quiet of Earth's surface, their footsteps echoing through the hollow streets. Overhead, the sky was choked with thick clouds, the sun barely visible through the mist. They made their way through the ruins, following the energy readings that seemed to pulse beneath the city. The deeper they ventured, the more they felt the weight of something watching them. It wasn't just the sense of a long-dead civilization. It was something alive, something ancient and forgotten, something that had been waiting. And then, as they descended into the heart of the city, they found it. Beneath the shattered remnants of a long-abandoned government building, they uncovered a massive vault. Its surface was covered in strange, alien markings that the crew couldn't decipher, yet it radiated an undeniable energy. This was no ordinary relic. It was something far more significant, something that had been hidden for a reason. Siren's voice echoed in their minds, a distant whisper from the past, warning them of the awakening to come. We were never gone. You just haven't been listening. At that moment, the explorers realized that Earth's silence was not the end of humanity. It was merely the beginning. The Dominion had not anticipated what they found on Earth. Captain Valora Terex stood at the edge of the massive underground vault, eyes locked on the strange, alien symbols etched into the metal. The vault hummed with an unsettling energy, its power resonating in the depths of her mind. The others stood in tense silence around her, the weight of their discovery pressing down on them. Something was stirring beneath the surface of this forgotten world. It wasn't just the ancient technology that had been buried for centuries. There was something more, a force they couldn't yet comprehend. We need to open it, Valora said, her voice sharp as she scanned the vault's surface for any sign of access. Whatever is inside could be the key to understanding these readings. Lieutenant Kel Norin stepped forward, his fingers dancing over the control panel embedded into the vault's door. His eyes flicked to Valora, uncertainty clouding his expression. Captain, this isn't like anything we've seen before. These symbols aren't Dominion-made, nor do they resemble any known alien language. It's as if this vault predates everything. Just open it, Valora snapped. She could feel the adrenaline surging through her veins, a mixture of anticipation and wariness. We don't have time to waste. Cale hesitated, his hand hovering above the panel before he finally pressed a sequence of commands. A low, rumbling sound reverberated through the chamber, and the massive door began to grind open with a screech that echoed through the ruins. As the vault door opened, a cold wind rushed out, carrying with it the scent of decay and age. The team's breath caught as they peered inside. What they saw was not what they expected. The room within was vast, filled with rows upon rows of strange, glowing devices and archaic machinery, all connected by a network of intricate wires. At the far end of the room, beneath a towering obelisk of metal and glass, stood a single figure. It was human. A woman, her features obscured by the faint blue glow of the chamber's illumination. She stood motionless, her eyes closed, as though in deep slumber. Siren. Valora's heart skipped a beat. The woman's presence was both familiar and foreign, a living anomaly on a planet that had been abandoned. How could she be here? And why had she remained hidden for so long? Captain, this can't be right, Cale muttered, stepping back. How is this possible? She looks like one of us. Valora finished, her voice distant as she stepped forward. She moved cautiously, each step a careful test of the ground beneath her, as if the very air in this place could be toxic. She's alive, Cale said, his voice tinged with disbelief. But how? Before he could finish, the woman's eyes snapped open, a deep, unsettling blue glow emanating from within. She looked directly at Valora, her gaze piercing through the Dominion captain, as if she had known her for centuries. You shouldn't have come here. Siren's voice echoed in the chamber, soft yet powerful. It was the same voice they had heard in their minds earlier, a voice that spoke from the past. You've awakened something ancient. Valora took a step back, her instincts screaming at her to be wary, but the woman's words held her in place. What are you? Valora demanded, her voice laced with a mixture of awe and fear. What is this place? Siren smiled, though there was no warmth in it. This place is where we slept, where humanity's last hope was hidden. And now you've opened the door. Her eyes flicked to the vault, and her lips tightened. You've awakened the resistance. The word hung in the air like a weight. The resistance. Had humanity truly survived in secret, living beneath the Dominion's radar, waiting for the moment to strike? You're alive. You're all alive, Kale stammered, the shock evident in his voice. But the Dominion records. Do not believe the Dominion's lies, Saren interrupted, her tone icy. You've been fed their version of history for centuries, but the truth is far darker. Humanity was never wiped out. We were hidden, isolated, waiting for the galaxy to forget us. And now, her gaze turned cold, a flash of anger flickering in her eyes. Now we have returned. There was a long pause as the Dominion crew absorbed her words, the implications sinking in like a heavy stone. The Dominion had believed Earth was a forgotten, insignificant backwater. But the truth was far more unsettling. Humanity had not only survived, but had been waiting, biding its time. And now, the Dominion was unprepared for what was about to come. Valora squared her shoulders, trying to steady her nerves. She had always been prepared for the unexpected, but this was something entirely different. The woman, Saren, was not just a survivor. She was the key to something far greater. What do you want? Valora asked, her voice steady, but tinged with uncertainty. Saren's eyes softened, just for a moment. I want what humanity has always wanted, freedom. And you, Captain, have just given us the means to take it. With that, Saren stepped forward, and the vault began to hum with an even more intense energy. The devices around them began to light up, their dormant power now awakening. It was clear that humanity's long-forgotten legacy was about to change the course of the galaxy forever. And the Dominion would soon learn that their greatest mistake had been underestimating Earth. The moment Saren stepped forward, a deep rumbling resonated through the chamber, as if the entire underground vault was awakening from a centuries-long slumber. The Dominion team stood frozen in place, their minds scrambling to make sense of what was happening. This isn't just some ancient relic, Valora murmured, her gaze locked on Saren, who now stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by the glowing devices that hummed with new life. This is a fortress. Saren's lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. You're starting to understand. This vault isn't a tomb. It's a weapon. And Earth has been its shield. Valora swallowed, trying to maintain her composure. Her pulse quickened as the implications of Saren's words began to sink in. Humanity had been hiding, biding its time, preparing for the day when the Dominion's empire would crumble. The vault beneath their feet had been the key to that plan, a sanctuary and a launching point for a revolution no one had expected. You've been living in hiding for all these years, Kale asked, his voice tight with disbelief. How could you have survived? Saren's eyes darkened, and for a brief moment, something passed through her expression, a deep sorrow. We didn't survive, Lieutenant. We adapted. We were forced to evolve, just as humanity always does. The survivors from the old world are scattered, but we've been rebuilding, slowly, quietly. Valora stepped forward, her mind racing. And now do you plan to fight back? Saren nodded, her expression hardening. It's not just a fight. It's a reckoning. A tense silence stretched between them. The hum of the vault intensified, the power coursing through its walls now palpable, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant finally waking. Valora glanced at her crew. They were trained soldiers, but they had never faced anything like this before. How many of you are there? Kale asked, his voice quiet, yet full of the kind of fear that only came when a predator realized it had been underestimated. Saren's gaze softened slightly, but there was no sign of fear in her eyes, enough to make the Dominion regret ever forgetting us. She turned away from the vault, her expression fierce. And more will come. We've contacted other hidden enclaves of survivors. They'll join us. The galaxy doesn't know it yet, but it's about to be changed. Valora exchanged a look with her crew. They had come here to investigate, to discover the source of the mysterious signal, but now they were caught in something much larger than they had ever imagined. "What are these devices?" Valor asked, gesturing to the glowing machinery that filled the vault. "What's their purpose?" Siren's gaze shifted to the closest device, and for a moment, it almost seemed like she was reliving the past. Her voice, when she spoke, was tinged with a quiet reverence. "These machines are what kept us alive, not just physically, but mentally. They've enhanced us in ways that the Dominion would never understand. Genetic modifications, neural augmentations, and most importantly, the ability to control and access technologies that were thought to be lost forever." Kale stepped closer, his hands hovering over the nearest machine, drawn in by its unnatural energy. "You're telling us these machines, they gave you these powers?" Siren's eyes narrowed. "The machines didn't give us power. They awakened the power that was always inside us. The potential of humanity. The Dominion thought they had wiped us out, erased our existence from the stars. But they made a mistake." A cold shiver ran down Valora's spine. It wasn't just the fact that humans had survived. They had been changed, enhanced. The Dominion had built their empire on the idea that they were the ultimate power in the galaxy, that no one could challenge their might. But Earth had been hiding the most dangerous weapon of all, humanity itself. "Why are you telling us this?" Kale asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. "If you have all this power, why not just destroy us now?" Siren's gaze shifted to him, piercing and calculating. "Because I don't want to destroy you. At least, not yet. You're not the enemy here. The Dominion is. You just don't see it yet." Valora frowned. "And what happens when we go back? What happens when the Dominion learns what you've uncovered here?" Siren's lips curled into a grim smile. "They'll learn soon enough. You'll take the message back to them. And when they realize what you've discovered, they'll know they made the greatest mistake of all." A strange buzzing noise filled the chamber as one of the machines began to whir. Suddenly, the holographic screens surrounding them came to life, displaying maps of the galaxy, star systems, and hidden caches of resources scattered across the known universe. It was as if the vault itself was revealing its secrets to them, showing them not just the present, but the path forward. "We've been preparing for this moment for a long time," Siren said, her voice low but filled with an undeniable power. "You will be the first of many to witness the beginning of the end for the Dominion. And once they fall, the galaxy will know the truth. Humanity was never gone. We were just waiting." Valora's mind raced, the weight of the situation settling heavily on her shoulders. The Dominion had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now it would pay the price. The rebellion had begun, and Earth was no longer a forgotten planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The Dominion's empire would soon learn that no matter how far they had come, they had never truly conquered Earth. The air inside the vault crackled with the energy of centuries-old secrets finally being uncovered. Siren's revelation about the Phoenix Protocol sent a ripple of unease through the Dominion crew. To them, it was more than a concept. It was a reminder that Earth, far from being a dead world, had been preserved for something far greater, something they were about to face. Siren's hand rested on one of the central consoles, her fingers gliding across the holographic interface with practiced ease. The maps of the galaxy flickered and shifted, but this time they revealed more than just resource caches and hidden enclaves. They revealed something far more dangerous, a network of weapons that had been hidden beneath Earth's surface, dormant and waiting for activation. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't just a plan. Siren's voice was low, a steady cadence in her words. It was humanity's final safeguard, a contingency for when the galaxy's darkness came knocking, a way to protect Earth and our people, by any means necessary. Valora's eyes narrowed. "And what does that mean, exactly?" Siren turned, her eyes flashing with something akin to recognition. The Phoenix Protocol was designed to wake up after humanity was eradicated, or so the Dominion thought. But we weren't eradicated. We were hidden, our technology stowed away, waiting for the right moment to strike. It's a weapon, Captain. A weapon that gives us the power to reshape the galaxy. Kale took a step back, his brow furrowing. You mean, you have weapons that could take down the Dominion's fleet? Saren smiled bitterly. The Dominion's fleets are nothing compared to what's buried in this world. We're talking about ancient systems, artificial intelligences, drones, biological enhancements that the galaxy's never seen, and you're standing on the doorstep of it all. She gestured to the vast expanse of machinery around them, the vault humming to life as though responding to her words. Some of the dormant systems began to light up, their power sources flickering into activity. The walls seemed to pulse with a slow, rhythmic beat, a signal that something enormous was being awakened. Kale watched as the vault's once hidden compartments began to open, revealing long-forgotten technology. Some of the devices were sleek and elegant, their designs unlike anything Dominion engineers had ever created. Others were more organic in shape, biological interfaces that seemed to pulse with life, like some kind of living organism. What happens if you activate all of this? Valora asked, her voice steady, but tinged with an undercurrent of concern. What does the Phoenix Protocol actually do? Saren stepped closer to a massive console at the far end of the room, a control panel that looked more like a heart than a machine. It will bring everything online. All of humanity's greatest creations, all of our technological advances, all of our potential will be unleashed. And when that happens, the Dominion's empire will crumble. It will be rebuilt in the image of what Earth once was, a place where freedom reigns. But first, the galaxy must be reminded who we are. Valora's mind raced as she tried to process the implications. The Dominion had spent centuries consolidating power, crushing rebellions, and wiping out civilizations. But if Saren's words were true, if Earth had the power to wield technologies capable of overwhelming the Dominion, it would change everything. Earth was no longer a forgotten planet. It was a sleeping giant, and now that giant was waking. Why not just strike now? Kale asked, his voice shaking. Activate the protocol, unleash all this power, and end it. Saren shook her head. Because the Phoenix Protocol is more than just a weapon. It's also a test, a measure of our survival. It will force humanity to prove its worthiness before it can wield such power. If we cannot unite, if we cannot work together, then it will destroy us, and the galaxy will be left with nothing. Valora took a slow breath, processing the gravity of what Saren was saying. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't just a weapon, it was a crucible, a test for humanity's worthiness to rise again. Why tell us all this? Valora asked, her voice quieter now, as though she were beginning to see a larger picture unfold. You could have used us to trigger the protocol, sent us back to the Dominion with a weapon. Why risk everything by revealing all of this? Saren turned, meeting her gaze with an intensity that sent a chill down Valora's spine. Because I don't want this to be just about revenge. If we strike blindly, if we act out of anger, we'll be no better than the Dominion. We need to build something new, something sustainable. And to do that, I need more than just warriors. I need people who believe in a future beyond the war, people who understand what it means to rise from the ashes. Valora's heart clenched. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was about reclaiming a lost legacy, about forging a new path for humanity and the galaxy. Are you asking us to help you? Kale said, his voice softer now, more cautious. Saren gave him a small, grim smile. I'm not asking for help. I'm asking for loyalty. I'm asking you to choose a side. Because the moment the Phoenix Protocol is activated, there's no going back. The galaxy will change, and the Dominion will be the first to feel its wrath. The machines in the vault hummed louder now, the energy rising to a fever pitch. It was clear that the time to make a decision had arrived. Valora looked at her crew, each of them silently grappling with the reality of what Saren was offering. She felt the weight of the choice settle on her shoulders. Her entire life had been dedicated to serving the Dominion, but now she stood at the crossroads of a new future, one where humanity could rise again, and where everything she had known could be shattered forever. "We'll help you," Valora said finally, her voice unwavering. "But we'll need more than just power. We'll need a plan. We'll need to unite the galaxy, not just to fight, but to rebuild." Saren's eyes gleamed with approval. "And that's why you're here." The decision had been made. As Valora stood in the heart of the vault, the magnitude of their choice began to settle heavily upon her. The Phoenix Protocol was not just an ancient weapon, but a rebirth for humanity, a force capable of reshaping the entire galaxy. It was no longer just about survival. It was about taking back what had been lost and reclaiming their rightful place among the stars. "We'll help you," Valora had said, but now, as the vault's eerie hum filled the silence, she could feel the weight of the words. They were committed, bound to this secret world beneath the surface of Earth, with no turning back. Saren had given her a nod of approval, but Valora saw the underlying tension in the woman's eyes. The power they were about to unleash was immense, and Saren knew as well as Valora that nothing, no one, could prepare them for the storm it would bring. "Once we activate the Phoenix Protocol," Saren had said, her tone steady yet filled with anticipation, "the Dominion will feel the shockwave. They will come. And when they do, we will be ready." The finality of those words echoed in Valora's mind as she turned to face her crew. Each of them was deep in thought, processing the decision they had just made. Kel's brow was furrowed, his lips tight with uncertainty. Lieutenant Sela, standing by the rear of the room, seemed lost in her own thoughts. It was clear they all understood the gravity of the situation, but it was also clear that none of them truly grasped the full extent of the coming conflict. "We're not ready," Kale finally muttered, his voice low. "We don't have the infrastructure, the resources. We barely know how these machines work. What if activating them is the wrong choice?" Saren turned toward him, her eyes flashing with cold intensity. "There's no room for doubt. The Dominion will stop at nothing to crush us. If we hesitate now, if we falter, we'll lose everything." Valora stepped forward, her voice steady despite the inner turmoil swirling inside her. "We don't have to win every battle. We just need to show them we're here, that we're not forgotten." She glanced at Kale and the others. "This is our chance to fight back. We're not going to back down now." For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the hum of the machines. Then, finally, Kale nodded, though his face was still marked with unease. "You're right. We don't have a choice now. If we fail, we'll be wiped out. But if we succeed..." "If we succeed," Saren interrupted, her voice cutting through the uncertainty, "the galaxy will never be the same again." The words hung in the air like a challenge. It was clear to Valora that Saren wasn't just talking about defeating the Dominion. She was speaking of something far greater, an entirely new order. Earth's return to power was only the beginning. What Saren envisioned was a rebirth for humanity, one that would reverberate across every corner of the galaxy. Valora shook off her doubts. They had made their decision, and there was no turning back. "Let's activate the protocol." Saren gave a grim nod and turned toward the central control panel. With a few swift movements, she input a series of commands, the chamber around them humming louder as the systems activated. The once dormant machinery around them began to flicker to life, the energy surging through the room in a dazzling display of light. Holographic projections sprang to life, showing vast star maps, weapon schematics, and armies of drones waiting for deployment. Cal's eyes widened as he watched the holographic army form before him. This is more than we expected. We could bring down entire fleets with this. We could bring down entire empires," Saren corrected him, her voice calm but fierce. "And we will. But first, we need to send a message, not just to the Dominion, but to everyone who's forgotten what humanity is capable of." Valora glanced at the projection. She had always believed in the Dominion's superiority, in its overwhelming power. But now, standing here on this forgotten world, seeing the true might of humanity's legacy, she understood that their empire was built on a fragile foundation, one that Earth's hidden forces could shatter in an instant. "Siren," Valora said, her voice steady. "How do we begin? Where do we strike first?" Siren turned to face her, the weight of leadership settling in her eyes. "We strike where it hurts the most. The Dominion's core, their capital, the heart of their empire. The first strike will be against their supply lines. Hit them where they least expect it. We'll hit hard and fast." Valora felt a cold rush of resolve wash over her. There was no turning back now. They were about to ignite a war that would change everything. The Dominion's days of unchecked control were over. But as Siren prepared to finalize the commands for the protocol, a sudden alarm cut through the air, sharp and shrill. The walls of the vault shook as the sound reverberated through the chamber. Valora's heart skipped a beat as she turned to Siren, who was already working to stabilize the systems. "What's happening?" Kale demanded. Siren's fingers flew over the controls, but her face betrayed her growing concern. "It's the Dominion. They've detected our presence." Valora cursed under her breath. "They found us." The holographic projections flickered, showing a fleet of Dominion ships on an intercept course for Earth. It was too late to stop now. The Dominion was coming, and they weren't alone. The fight for Earth had begun. The shrill alarm echoed through the vault, its harsh tone amplifying the urgency of the situation. Siren's face tightened as she swiftly tapped commands into the holographic console. The once silent chamber, now buzzing with energy, seemed to pulse with the growing tension. The Dominion had found them. And with it, the quiet uncertainty of the past was replaced with the thunderous roar of imminent conflict. "They're coming faster than I anticipated," Siren muttered under her breath, her fingers flying over the controls. "We don't have much time." Valora felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The stakes had shifted drastically in an instant. What had started as a mission to uncover a forgotten relic of humanity's past had turned into a full-scale war. She turned to her crew, her voice steady but filled with the urgency of the situation. "Kale, Sela, get to the armory. We'll need every weapon we can get our hands on." Kale nodded quickly, his face set in determination. "Understood. We'll be ready." Valora glanced toward the vault's large metallic doors. Outside, the storm had begun, an all-out assault from the Dominion. And within the chamber, Siren's eyes darted back and forth, trying to make sense of the incoming data. "They're not just sending a few ships," she said, her voice strained with the sudden shift in reality. "They're sending an entire fleet. They must have known something was going on for a while. This was no accident. Their fleet is bigger than I expected," Valora said, taking a step closer to the projection as the Dominion ships appeared in real time on the holographic map. "It's a full assault. Do you think they've already pinpointed our location?" "They have. They're not taking any chances now," Siren replied, looking up. "And if we don't act fast, we'll be buried before we can do anything." Sela, who had been standing silently by, her eyes hard and focused, stepped forward. "We can't just run. If we retreat now, we lose everything. Earth's future, humanity's future." Her voice was unwavering, her belief in their cause clear. "We need to take the fight to them. Now." Valora looked between Sela, Kale, and Siren. The crew was ready, their conviction strong. They had already decided their fate when they chose to stay and fight. But now, the reality of that choice hit like a physical blow. A sudden, overwhelming sense of responsibility fell on Valora's shoulders. This was no longer just a mission. It was the future of the galaxy, the fate of every person on Earth, and the rekindling of a fire that had long been thought extinguished. "We fight on our terms," Valora said, her voice steady as she made the decision. "Siren, how do we use the Phoenix Protocol against them?" Siren's eyes glinted with a cold fury. "We have to disable their lead ships first. Without those, the fleet will fall apart. Their command and control systems are centralized. If we can neutralize the high command vessels, we can disrupt their entire operation. Can we get to them in time? Kale asked, returning with weapons from the armory, a laser rifle slung over his shoulder. We can, Saren said with a finality that brooked no argument. But we need to move quickly. The longer we delay, the harder it will be to get ahead of them. Sela stepped forward, her voice sharp with determination. Then let's make it count. We've already come this far. We can't afford to falter now. Without another word, Saren turned to a central console, her hands working at an astounding speed as she brought up schematics of the Dominion ships. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't just a means of unleashing destruction. It was a tool for precision. The kind of precision that humanity, in its hidden might, could wield to take down an empire. Valora stepped back, her eyes narrowing as she watched the projections. The maps showed the incoming fleet, but also the network of vulnerabilities they would exploit. Key points. Weak links. The technological heart of the Dominion's massive armada, exposed and open to sabotage. Saren, are we ready? Valora asked. Ready enough, Saren replied, a grim smile tugging at her lips. We'll need to launch a series of coordinated strikes. I've located the command ship. It's the largest in the fleet, a true flagship. If we hit that with everything we've got, it could cripple their entire offensive. Valora nodded. How do we get close enough to strike it? Saren turned to the control panel once more, her fingers moving rapidly over the keys. I've got a stealth ship in the lower bay. It's a prototype, faster, quieter, and equipped with systems that should allow us to approach undetected. We'll launch from here, board the command ship, and take it down from the inside. Kale and Sela exchanged a quick glance. They had all heard about the stealth ship. It was an experimental craft, one designed with technology long lost to the galaxy. Few had known it even existed until now. Let's move, Valora ordered, her voice firm. We're not going to let them overwhelm us. This is our moment. The crew moved swiftly, gathering weapons and securing themselves for the mission ahead. The pulse of energy from the vault's machinery still vibrated through the walls, as if the very earth itself was readying for the storm to come. As they made their way to the stealth ship's bay, the weight of the task ahead pressed heavily on Valora's chest. The Dominion fleet was vast, but they were going to strike at its heart, with a force that would send a message across the galaxy. And if they succeeded, if they could disable the command ship, Earth would take its first step toward reclaiming its place in the stars. As the crew boarded the stealth ship, Valora looked out across the horizon, her gaze fixed on the advancing fleet. A storm was coming, and they were going to meet it head-on. The stealth ship hummed softly as it cut through the void, its systems cloaked from Dominion sensors. Inside, the crew was silent, each person focused, lost in their thoughts as the distance between them and the enemy fleet shrank. Valora sat at the helm, her hands steady on the controls, but her mind raced. She had led missions before, but this was different. This wasn't a raid or a tactical strike. This was humanity's last stand. The weight of it hung heavily on her, but there was no turning back now. The ship's sleek design, built from forgotten technology, allowed them to move undetected, but Valora knew it wouldn't last forever. The Dominion sensors were powerful, and it wouldn't take long before their cloaking systems were compromised. How much longer until we're in range? Kale asked, his voice low but laced with tension as he double-checked the weapon systems. 10 minutes, Saren replied, her eyes fixed on the ship's radar, scanning for any anomalies. We're almost there. Keep your heads down, and don't make any unnecessary moves. If they detect us, we'll have no choice but to fight our way through. Kale nodded, his fingers brushing over the grip of his rifle. He had trained for countless battles, but nothing compared to what they were about to face. Disabling the Dominion's flagship would cripple their fleet, but it would also make them a target unlike any they had ever been. This was no longer just about taking down an enemy ship. It was about making a statement. and that statement would echo through every corner of the galaxy. Sela stood at the rear of the ship, watching the rear sensors. She was their tactical officer, the one who kept them grounded when plans seemed too wild or reckless. Even now, her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the tension surrounding them. "We'll need to hit them hard and fast," Sela said, her voice cutting through the silence. "If we take too long, the other ships will reinforce the flagship. We can't afford to let this drag out." Valora glanced over her shoulder, meeting Sela's steady gaze. "Agreed. We'll disable their primary weapons first, then board. After that, we take out the command center and shut it down." The others nodded, ready for what was to come. The plan had been simple. Use the stealth ship's advanced technology to hit close without detection, disable the Dominion flagship systems, and board it. Once inside, they would take out the command crew and disable the fleet's central communication systems. The mission was a gamble, but it was their best shot. As they neared the flagship, the massive silhouette of the Dominion's command ship loomed in the distance. Its dark hull was nearly the size of a small moon, its armored exterior gleaming even in the low light of space. The ship was a fortress, heavily armed, well protected, and surrounded by smaller warships. It was the nerve center of the Dominion's fleet, and it was the first target on their list. "We're in range," Saren said, her voice almost a whisper. "Prepare to strike." Valora's grip tightened on the controls as the ship entered the flagship's vicinity, cloaking systems still holding. The ship's proximity alarms remained silent, but Valora knew they couldn't last much longer. At any moment, the Dominion would scan their location. It was a race against time. "Ready on weapons," Kale said, his hands poised above the targeting controls. "On my mark," Valora ordered, her eyes locked onto the flagship. It was massive, but there were weak points, gaps in the armor, areas where the ship's shields would be vulnerable to a focused strike. Their stealth ship's advanced weaponry was designed for precision, and it would be their only advantage. 3, Valora counted down, her voice cold and sharp. 2, 1. The moment the final count left her lips, she hit the activation button, releasing a barrage of high-powered pulses toward the flagship's primary power grid. The silent explosions rippled across the ship's surface, the energy shields flaring momentarily before they faltered under the assault. The first strike had done its job. The flagship's outer defenses were down, leaving it exposed. "Now," Valora barked, throwing the ship into full thrust as they barreled toward the vulnerable command ship. Kale moved quickly, strapping himself into the side turret as Sela began analyzing the ship's internal systems. "The shields are down, but we've only got a few minutes before they reinforce. We need to board now." Valora's eyes never left the control panel as she guided the ship toward the flagship's docking bay. The stealth ship's proximity alarms began to blare as the Dominion's fleet scrambled to respond, but they were too late. The cloaking technology had bought them just enough time to make their move. The ship slid into the docking bay with a soft thud, the entry ramp immediately lowering as the crew unstrapped and grabbed their weapons. "Move out," Valora ordered, her voice commanding and focused. The door to the command ship's inner corridors opened with a hiss, and they stormed into the heart of the Dominion flagship. Their footsteps were muffled against the cold, sterile floors of the ship as they moved quickly through its hallways, weapons raised, their eyes scanning for any sign of resistance. Sela's voice came through the comms. "The central control room is 2 levels above us. We need to get there fast before they can react." Valora nodded, her pulse racing as they sprinted through the labyrinthine corridors. The air felt thick with tension, the overwhelming weight of their task hanging over them. Every second counted. Every move was crucial. The Dominion wasn't just going to let them take the ship without a fight. The crew reached the control room's entrance, the large doors sliding open with a hiss. Inside, Dominion officers were scrambling to respond, their faces turning pale as they saw the intruders. The command center was a chaos of flashing lights and frantic orders, but it all fell silent when Valora stepped into the room, her rifle raised. "This is it," Valora said, her voice steady but filled with a sense of finality. "Surrender, or we take it from you." The officers froze, realizing that in this moment they were facing something they never expected. Humanity's wrath, long thought buried, had returned, and it was ready to burn everything down. The control room was a battlefield of confusion. Dominion officers scrambling to react to the sudden intrusion. Their faces were a mix of disbelief and fear as they looked at the humans who had stormed their most secure ship, their flagship. The room was filled with the hum of technology, the blaring alarms of security breaches, and the frantic attempts to reestablish control. But it was already too late. Valora stood at the entrance, rifle aimed at the lead officer, a tall, imposing man whose uniform marked him as the commander of the fleet. His eyes widened when he saw her, and for a split second, there was a flicker of recognition in his gaze. He had heard the legends, the stories of humanity's resilience, but he never truly believed it until now. "Weapons down," Valora commanded, her voice sharp and unwavering. "This is your final chance. Surrender and power down the ship. You will be treated as prisoners of war. Resist, and I'll take this ship apart piece by piece." For a long moment, there was silence. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to respond. But then, the commander, the man who had once seen Earth's people as little more than a forgotten relic, stepped forward. His hand hovered over a console, and Valora's instincts screamed for her to act. But before she could give the order, the commander raised his hand slowly in surrender. "We will not resist," he said, his voice low and tense, filled with an odd mixture of fear and respect. "But you do not understand what you are doing. You are waking a power you cannot control." Valora's heart tightened. She had heard these words before, the warnings of the Dominion's arrogance. They thought humanity was weak. They thought that years of dominance and suppression had broken Earth's spirit, but they had underestimated humanity's core, its ability to rise from the ashes, to fight against insurmountable odds. "The power is ours to control now," Valora replied, her voice cold and final. "And we will use it to end your reign." With a nod from Valora, Kel and Scylla quickly moved to secure the room, disarming the remaining officers and taking control of the command consoles. Meanwhile, Siren was already at the primary terminal, her fingers flying across the screen, accessing the ship's systems with the expertise of someone who had lived in its shadows. She worked quickly, overriding the Dominion's lockdown protocols and bringing the ship's systems under their control. "We've got full access," Siren announced, her voice filled with a sense of grim satisfaction. "The flagship is ours. Now we just need to make sure the rest of their fleet gets the message." Valora turned to face the trembling commander. "What was it you said? About power we can't control. The truth is, we've been controlling our own destiny all along. You just never realized it." The commander said nothing, his eyes lowered in defeat. It was clear he understood the inevitability of their victory. The Dominion had once believed that humanity was a forgotten relic, a species too weak to fight back, too fractured to unite. But the Phoenix Protocol had changed that. It had reignited humanity's strength born from a legacy of survival, of ingenuity, and an unyielding will to prevail. With the flagship now under their control, Valora knew the next step was clear. They would broadcast a message across the entire Dominion fleet, a message of defiance, a declaration that Earth was no longer a forgotten world. The fight had only just begun, and humanity's resurgence would reverberate across the galaxy. "Prepare to send the signal," Valora ordered. "I want the whole fleet to hear this." Siren quickly keyed in the command, and within moments, the ship's main broadcast systems came to life. Valora stepped in front of the central console, her gaze cold and determined as she addressed the Dominion's forces. "People of the Dominion," she began, her voice booming across the vastness of space, "you have long claimed that humanity was weak, that we were nothing more than a fading memory. But you were wrong. Earth was never defeated. We were only waiting. And now we are here. This is the beginning of the end for your empire." She paused, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the moment, the point of no return. We will no longer be forgotten. Humanity is coming for you. And this time, we will fight for our future. This time, we will win. Her words echoed through the command center, the crew silent as the broadcast sent ripples of shock through the Dominion fleet. Valora's voice rang out across every ship, every soldier, and every leader in the Dominion's armada. The entire galaxy would hear the message of humanity's return. As the signal was sent, the Dominion flagship shook with a violent tremor, a ripple of energy running through its core. The ship was in motion, but this time, it wasn't under the Dominion's control. Valora felt the pulse of the ship's power, and for the first time in years, she felt a surge of hope. They had done it. They had reclaimed their place in the stars. But even as the crew celebrated their victory, Valora knew the real war was just beginning. The Dominion would retaliate. They wouldn't just let Earth go without a fight. But now, humanity had the strength, the knowledge, and the resolve to stand up and face them. "Get ready," she said, her voice steady, her eyes burning with determination. "We've won the first battle. Now let's win the war." With the command ship in their hands, the message sent, and the first blow struck, humanity's rise had begun. And this time, the galaxy would never forget the name of Earth.